The Triumph Tiger 800 wasn't the first big adventure bike to go on sale in India, but it's quickly become synonymous with the segment. This is a tremendously capable motorcycle, and the sales numbers reflect that. The Tiger is the best-selling premium ADV bike India's ever seen. Now, it's exactly this success that BMW wants to eat into with its brand new 850 GS. A motorcycle that seems to have been developed specifically to beat the Tiger at its own game. A glance at the spec sheet will reveal just how many similarities these bikes share. For starters, the F850 GS comes with an off-road biased 21-inch wheel up front, just like the Triumph Tiger 800 XCX. Now that makes both these bikes the off-road focused versions in their families, and they both have 43mm upside-down forks with over 200mm of suspension travel at both ends. And with its new 853cc engine, the international spec BMW also makes the exact same power as the Triumph at 95 horsepower. But the model for India has been mildly detuned for our fuel. But if you take a closer look at the spec sheet, you'll see that BMW's brand new parallel twin makes 10% more torque, considerably lower in the rev range. And that translates to a very different feel. The BMW's new parallel twin engine feels purpose-built for this role. It packs a solid mid-range and it has a deep rumble and beat thanks to a new 270-degree firing order. The engine is also noticeably smoother than before, with only mild vibrations creeping in towards the 8,700 RPM redline. The BMW motor is quite refined, but the Tiger on the other hand is famed for its velvety smooth engine, and in terms of sheer refinement, it's a cut above the BMW. While the Triumph's inline 3-cylinder engine doesn't have the BMW's sheer mid-range punch, the Tiger revs much harder and the exhaust howls like a sports bike as you chase the 10,500 RPM redline. That's every bit as fun as it sounds. But don't confuse the Tiger's top-end rush for a lack of real-world rideability. Both these bikes can easily cruise at serious highway speeds, but the Tiger takes it one step further with an enjoyably flexible power delivery. This bike can crawl at low speeds in high gears, and you can comfortably use 6th gear from as low as 40 km per hour and then surge back to highway cruising speeds in just a few seconds. The BMW on the other hand always finds it a gear or two higher than the Triumph, and as a result, the Tiger is more relaxing in our dramatic riding environment. When you do need to shift gears, the Tiger's transmission also has a wonderfully precise and clicky feel, which the BMW can't quite match. But the F850 GS Pro model that we have here brings in an up and down quick shifter to the table that is a segment first. Essentially, this system allows you to shift up or down through the gears without using the clutch. The system works well above 4000 RPM, but it feels clunky below that, and you'll end up using the clutch at lower urban speeds. In traffic, the BMW also runs noticeably cooler than the Triumph, which builds quite a lot of heat around the frame where the rider's legs meet the motorcycle. But city traffic accounts for a fraction of where these bikes will spend their time. So next up, we're going to address a far more important aspect of an adventure bike, the suspension. Another aspect where these two bikes take a very different approach. The Tiger has adjustable suspension from WP at both ends, and this is something you'll find really advantageous if you're the type who goes hunting for off-road trails. The compression and rebound damping on the front can easily be changed by using knobs at the top of the fork, but the adjustability on the rear shock is not as easy to reach. Strangely enough, BMW gives you no adjustability whatsoever with the fork, but the rear shock gets electronic adjustability, and that means you could just sit here, press a couple of buttons and set up the rear shock for whether it's just a rider or a rider and a pillion, or maybe even a rider with luggage. Now, considering how much adventure bikes are used to tow, that's a feature that will be appreciated in the long run. With its electronic suspension function, the GS can also firm up the rear shock when you shift it into the dynamic riding mode. Speaking of which, both these bikes offer a similar set of riding modes, but the BMW allows you to switch traction control or ABS on and off while on the move, while the Triumph insists that you must come to a standstill to do the same. The BMW even remembers your last selection when you turn the bike off and on again. Now this sounds like a small convenience, but it's a nice one to have, especially over long multi-day road trips. Both bikes also get cruise control, and while the GS's short, non-adjustable windscreen works great in our hot climate, you'll be happy on the Tiger in the frigid areas of Ladakh, thanks to a much bigger, height-adjustable windscreen and heated grips. Ultimately, the Tiger will cover much more distance because it has a bigger 19-litre fuel tank compared to the rather small 15-litre unit on the BMW. On the upside, the smaller fuel tank makes the GS feel like a slimmer motorcycle.
On the open road, these are fabulous machines. They've got enough power to effortlessly cruise at high triple-digit speeds. The Tiger suspension is a little more plush, but the BMW's isn't far off. Both of them have super comfy riding positions. There's plenty of space for a rider and a pillion. But the Tiger's rear seat is a little larger, so it is a little more pillion friendly. If I were to complain, one of the issues I've had with the Tiger over the years is that when you stand up off-road and hold onto the motorcycle, your knees tend to come in contact with these bars on the frame, and that does get uncomfortable.
Nothing comes close to big adventure bikes like these when it comes to effortlessly sailing through whatever comes their way. Both bikes eat through bad roads without any signs of discomfort, and you don't really have to slow down for anything. But when it comes to pure off-road fun, the Tiger feels more capable and planted, and that's thanks to its superior suspension control and feedback. The Tiger feels a little more top-heavy, but we discovered that it manages to find more traction than the BMW on loose surfaces, despite the fact that our test bike was wearing quite worn tires. The Tiger's metal bash guard also inspires more confidence than the BMW's plastic unit. On the downside, we wish the Tiger had similar side-laced spoke rims like the BMW, which support tubeless tires. Punctures tend to happen in the middle of nowhere, and taking the wheel of a huge adventure bike is a huge pain in the neck.
These are both highly capable motorcycles, but all that ability comes at some expense. Now with big 21-inch wheels up front and all that suspension, travel and ground clearance, they're bound to be tall motorcycles. The Tiger does feel a little lower thanks to a 2-step height adjustable seat, whereas the BMW seat is fixed. But BMW will sell you a low ride height version that has reduced suspension travel. Either way, these are big, tall, 220-odd kilo motorcycles, and they do demand some level of skill and confidence from their riders.
Picking between these two has us scratching our heads and doing quite a bit of soul searching. The BMW has more advanced features than the Tiger, its quality and finish is on a higher level, and it's also the nicer looking of the two. But all this comes at a cost. That lovely TFT display you see on the bike isn't standard, and it comes at an extra rupees 60,000. If you like the optional rally paint scheme on our test bike, that takes the premium further up by another 40,000. Another issue is that because the BMW comes to India as a CBU, it's punished by the tax structure in some states. For example, the on-road price in Mumbai stretches to nearly rupees 3 lakh more than the Triumph, and at rupees 19.7 lakh on-road, you really start to wonder, how much is too much to pay for a mid-sized adventure bike?
The Tiger's also gotten more expensive over the years, and while we'd love to have the price come down a little bit, it's still more reasonable than the GS. Further still, Triumph's ownership and after-sales costs are considerably lower than BMW's, and when you factor in just how many Tigers are already out on the road, you'll probably have less of an issue with spare parts availability.
After 2 days and many hundreds of kilometers, we're still torn between these two rather excellent motorcycles. The way it boils down is that the BMW is the one to have if you're a road-biased rider who wants a more premium experience and doesn't mind paying for it. But the Tiger is still a proven package that makes for a terrific motorcycle no matter the conditions. It's got a nicer powertrain, has a longer touring range, and is more spacious and comfortable as well. Personally, I'm the type to make carefully thought out head-over-heart decisions, and for me, the Tiger's lower buy-in and running costs just about seal the deal in its favor.